This is the Follow Line with Chaos and Company. I'm Dave Caper, and I'm here with my buddy Angelo, and we have an amazing podcast for you this morning, which you might be listening to at night, but we're recording in the morning. So we all had to drink some heavy coffee. We need some intravenous, but I want to also thank our sponsors out there for continuing to support us with Blizzard Technica and also Nick's Boot Fitting. It's really helpful for those guys. And if you can support them, and we're getting into almost October, so folks want to think about boot fitting. So you might want to check out your boot fitters. And over there, Nick and George at Nick's Boot Fitting near Mount Snow is pretty awesome. I know Jeb does some stuff with them, don't you, Jeb?
Yes, I do. Those guys are awesome. Yeah. I can't say enough about that. It's tough to find someone you can trust. And what I really like about those guys is they just, rather than just diving in and say, this is what I think you need, they say, what do you think? Yeah. And that's money right there.
Yeah. And it's pretty awesome, Angelo, to have Mr. Jeb Boyd on. I know a lot of folks know Jeb is the coach of the team, which means all disciplines for our national team. Snowboard and adaptive and Nordic and Alpine, even though he's the Alpine man, he's the coach of the entire team, which is pretty cool. So we're psyched to have him today. I'm going to talk about some stuff he's doing, maybe some stuff the team's doing, then also Levi Finland. And I know Angelo is psyched for this one. Huh, buddy?
I am psyched. And I'm actually was just thinking back that Jeb and Matt were on I think the second podcast we did. And the FCC hasn't shut us down, so
I'm surprised to hear that.
Yeah,
so we must be okay.
Yeah, that's great. He came back. He either forgot he was on, or but he definitely.
No, it was good fun. I really enjoyed it. I like you guys. What you guys are doing, I think it's awesome. Well, keeping it light, keeping it easy.
Yeah. We had a bunch of socials last time. We probably had a not this morning. I got a busy day.
I thought that was pretty strategic to do it at 8:00 in the morning. You got to be either hardcore or tempered a little bit.
Getting old.
Oh man, but I was talking to Angelo before we even put the red dot on there that we knew we were recording that before you get on, Jeb, and I was saying, I get some of those butterflies when I get you coming on, even though we're good buddies and it's easy, and it's not the nerves are like, oh my God, Jeb's coming on. It's more that this is an opportunity for our members to talk to someone. I think the team's very humble, I believe, and you are, and I don't think people realize the role you have, that it's pretty big. I mean, it's big in terms of all the disciplines. You guys are going big right now, going to Levi Finland, but the teams have really come together. And when I say the teams, I mean, it's one team, but the disciplines working together for one voice, putting things out there. We had training last fall from the team and from like the national, as people like to look at it, coming down. I know there's stuff coming this year. And can you just tell the folks, briefly, just kind of your role, as the coach, what that means? Because I don't think people ask you that right out a lot of times.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, it's interesting when the role came around, they were looking to, they rehire the coaches every term, no different than the team members have to make the team again. And I remember a couple terms ago when they're looking for, that's when Rob Soger was stepping down from Alpine and some other changes were happening around the association. And they said, if you're interested in becoming a coach, here's your application process. And then in that, if you're also interested in taking on a little bit more, like coordinating all of the teams, indicate that. Well, I didn't really know, just like most of the things that come your way, I didn't really understand the full scope of what I was applying for. And, it's something that I wanted to go. I always like a challenge. I always like to pursue what's next. And, lo and behold, I got a call from Dave Schuling and said, we want you to be at the time, the team's manager. And we're going to make it its own role. I'm like, oh, I didn't apply for that. I applied to be the Alpine coach. And, since then, through that term, we realized that, there is so much coordination that has to take place between the national office, those initiatives, the divisionals or the regions, the efforts that they're putting in, and the team. The team's out on the road, the ones that get in the job done, where the rubber hits the road. And that's when this one team idea really started to gel, and you have the learning connection model and the opportunity to coordinate. And one team was born from that, and at the time, I remember vividly that the office staff were like, because at the time I would go capital O, capital N, capital E, and then lowercase team, one team. It's kind of like it's a thing,
Yeah.
And the office would come back and say, well, do you really want to do it that way? Because, do we want to make it a thing? And I'm like, heck yeah, I want to make it a thing. That is a big deal to get everybody streamlined and moving in one direction. So it's all evolved, my role, to coordinate the teams, so that every discipline is moving towards a common theme, a common goal, so that we have consistency. I mean, you guys know that has been our number one goal when you're looking at examining an ed staff is consistency. And it's hard for us as an association to be consistent if we're all over the place with what we value and what's important. So, really at this point of the game, my number one function is to coordinate between the education department in Lakewood and our coaches. And help us create streamlined messaging and content for our team so that they can be effective for our membership.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what is the team coach when he's on his own time here in the summer? We all things are going on during the summer, but when you dial down and you go into your summer, kind of like I do, you got the water parks and all that, but what have you been doing off season for you and family?
I really value being with the family and Tucker's a lot older now. I mean, he's out of college for crying out loud and doing his thing, but it's so much fun to hang out with those guys and to spend time with them. But, honestly, for me, it's about taking a break from skiing, because it has been everything in my life. And in the wintertime, it is everything that I think about and do. It's part of the job, too. There's a lot of people who expect that. But in the summertime, that's a chance for us to take a break. And the days are longer, the weather's warmer, the water gets warm, and I like to spend as much time as I can either on my bike or on the water, which is either water skiing or my latest endeavor is to learn surfing in my 50s, which is kind of kooky, but I'm addicted to it and I can't get enough. I'm kind of bummed that it's cooling down now just because of that.
Yeah, because that's the one thing you keep going at the water park is that surfing thing, the surf machine you have, right?
Surf machine is a very cool thing. Yes. Yes. And,
so do you keep it going for the business or just because you and Matt want to get on it?
Well, that's an interesting question. We always base our decisions on what we do at that company on what we like. And we think everybody likes what we like. Why not? But, that's been if you're not familiar with it, it's like what you see on the back of the cruise ships where they're, on what looks like a surfboard and they're surfing on a wave that really doesn't go anywhere. It's just the water's moving. And that's a cool thing because it really interjects the idea of skill and skill development into amusement. And that was a nice change for our property and gave people something to get better at. And because let's face it, when you're going down a water slide or you're splashing in a wave pool, okay, you can get a little bit better at that, but there's a definite end line there that it's as good as it gets. So
yeah, it looks great, man. I see all the videos, and this is where Angelo's going to come in too. I think that you watch the videos, you guys doing it. You watch videos. I know you have some customers or whatever there. You guys, there's videos that pop on Facebook and everything from water park. I never see a video of someone getting off the board to get off the wave. Like, how hard is it to get off to stop?
Well, that is a funny thing. And it's hard, because it's just such a mind game because your mind's telling you that you're moving and you're coming to a stop, but you're really not moving. You're standing still for the most part. The water's moving. But I know like towards the end of the summer, we all have to leave the office and go out and man a station at the water park. And I remember Matt telling me that, he got called up to coach on a Kua. And one of his students said, would you just show me, let me see you do it. Now, he hasn't done it once yet this summer. And so he's like, sure. Yeah, I'll go do that. So he's just like, I am going to heat it hard here, right? And so he slides out there, and I'm like, okay, I'm out on the waves. This is good. Now, how am I going to get off of here and make it kind of look like I know what I'm doing here? So it's a big deal. It's hard. It is hard to get off that thing, kind of stand there.
Yeah. Oh, Angela, I just picturing, man, you making some jokes about these guys or yourself getting off, because, I think it's easier to get off the skateboard than that surfer thing.
Oh, I just usually slam. That's how I come off the skateboard. It's not like by choice.
Yeah. Well, I could just see Matt as the instructor, like, okay, getting off, falling. Now he's in the washing machine. And then the student be like, yeah, I'm out. And that's not what I do.
Oh, so you kind of tune it out a little bit like I do. I mean, I turn it off. I try to turn it off and focus on what we're doing in the summer. I need that break. And but are there things you're looking at reading, or are you like totally like I'm reading something else that's got something other than do the skiing? Like, what's your?
Well, that's interesting. Part of being successful in this business is the ability to be a lifelong learner. I mean, that is like the basis to being successful in PSIA-AASI. And so, yeah, I read a couple books that are completely non-related. They're more business related, actually. And but there's always that takeaway. There's always the parallel, and then how can you apply that to what you do? And like one of the books that I read about was just the idea of simplicity. Mm-hmm. People look to you guys, they look to us, and they want you to take a complex thing and simplify it so that it's digestible. And that was, granted, it was talking about something other than skiing. But it's an important thing. We've got to be able to do that. And that's, to me, what makes a true pro is their ability to do that. And so that's really where my head was. It was all about, how to simplify a business and be successful, what's important, what's not. And but there's always those transfers.
Yeah. And I know you love the gym as much as Angela and I. If it says gym, we go the other way.
Yeah.
And I know you love the bike, and you guys water ski a ton. I know you, Matt, and you get out there, the crew out there water skiing. Are there thoughts in your head, or is it just kind of you love that physical side? I mean, I know you might kind of play it down, but you definitely want to perform at a high level, and I know you keep yourself in shape during the summer. So is there any focus like on the bike that you're trying to get some more KOMs or something that you're transferring to being a little better performance on snow in that, or water skiing, or whatever you're doing during the summer?
I think, for sure. I think a couple of examples are, like on the bike, it's like, just keep on pedaling, keep pushing through, get through it, continue to push, because let's face it, as we go through this, all the stops along the way through our organization, there are times when you've got to push through, and so that parallel is always there. And, the easy way out is just to bail out and do that big traverse across the hill and come to a stop, or to get off your bike and start pushing, but can you figure it out and make an adjust, dig deep, and start pushing your way through. But then, the other thing that is interesting is I've got this idea on my mountain bike about, being able to put your foot down, when you're riding on some really turny terrain. Dave, you can kind of know what I'm talking about. Every now and then you mess it up and you have to put your foot down, or you fall over. So, and then every now and then when you don't, you can negotiate that without putting your foot down. And to me, that's like such a direct focus of in skiing, in riding, in gliding on snow. We always say you got to move with your skis, you got to move with your board. but what the heck does that mean? It's like it has meaning to us, but people really have a hard time figuring that out. But I can tell you one thing. When you're negotiating some technical terrain and you have to clip out and put your foot down, you didn't move with your bike. You moved to the inside to turn that bike. And those movements were not coordinated enough to allow you to stay on the bike. So at that second that you have to put your foot down, this is the second that you move too far inside. No different than when you're in a turn and you move too far inside too quick and you have to splay or catch yourself or do something, other than your intention. Those two things are completely in parallel. And I think about that a lot when I'm out on there. When I'm navigating that terrain, I'm like, how can I keep pressure to the front of that front tire? How can I keep pressure to the front of my ski? Same.
Yeah, it's funny how everything kind of goes back. Even if we're not thinking about skiing at that moment, we can look at it and go, how does it relate back? And in the mental part, I think that's a piece in terms of the learning. Like, when you hit that frustration, you hit that wall. And I don't think a lot of our listeners out there and a lot of our membership really understands how much we work on it and those walls we hit.
Oh yeah,
have to break through.
I think it's great. It's unbelievable, and it's tough because we're in a society of comfort, right?
Yeah.
Our society likes us to be comfortable, likes it to be easy. And to really get good at anything, it's hard, and Lipton talks about the idea of hard fun. You get easy fun, or I can't remember all of his categories. You might remember that, Angela. Do you remember that?
What am I, the nerd? I have like all this shit on recall.
Well, I don't know. You work with those guys a lot more than I.
Easy fun, hard fun. There was a category above that was like really super challenging fun, and then there was social fun.
Yes, right, and how you, like that. Yeah, and I think how you it's like going back to the water park. Water slides is easy fun.
Yeah.
But hard fun is learning to surf. It's hard. It's hard. And to me, that's what brings excitement.
Our director down here calls those sack of potato sports.
Correct.
If I can put a sack of potatoes and it can do the same thing you're doing, that's not a sport.
That is beautiful.
And this leads right into, like, Angela and I have been trying to chat more often. I mean, we kind of get distant during the summer. We text a little bit. Just, it's crazy how busy we get to try to make sure we can ski all winter and every day. But we've been chatting a lot, and Angela and I set goals for the winter for ourselves. We've been talking about our goals and that. So I know, a lot of people go, oh man, the team members and Jeb probably doesn't have any goals. He's made it, man. He's the man. And I know different, that I know, like you said, being a lifelong learner, and that you set goals for yourself. And I'm curious what kind of goals you set for the upcoming season, and how you can relate that to Learning Connection model. Cause I know you and the team are thinking so much of that and how things relate into that. Mm-hmm. Have you set some goals, and can you talk a little bit about those goals?
Yeah. I think I'm not the young guy on the team anymore. Right. And so a lot of my goals are, first of all, backing up to me, like when I coach our staff at work, because we subscribe to goals, and I talk to them about saying, okay, what is your goal? And they'll tell me what the goal is. And then my next question is, what are you doing to achieve that goal? Are you just hoping it comes, or are you actually doing something that's going to get you closer to achieving that thing? So, for me, it's always about performance, because, you guys both know, every now and then you'll go through a tryout, and at that tryout, everybody's eyes are on you. And it's nerve wracking, and it cracks some, and some others can move through that. But as you guys know, when you put the jacket on, everybody's watching you all day long anyway, and so once you pass a tryout and you get your next job, now everybody's watching you, and so really my goals are more in line with, what do I need to do to stay strong? What do I need to do healthy? I know my body works well when it's strong. When I relax and take it easy, and I start to lose a little muscle mass or lose a little flexibility, that's when that's when I start to feel pain. And so I really, it's important for me to stay strong. Case in point, yesterday, we've had some weird weather here, and it's been a few days since I've been on the bike. And I was like, you know what? I got to get up early tomorrow morning and ride, because I know I can't ride at night yesterday. So I got to get it in the morning, because otherwise I feel like I'm starting to trail a little bit. And that's an important thing. So, physical goals really is to stay sharp and to stay as strong as I can, so that, I can remain relevant to our membership, which leads me to my next goal, which is really helping the teams and helping the association create content and create, the effort that we do actually helps our members do their job, as opposed to being this crazy complex thing that it's all going to help. But if people either confuse the message or don't understand the message, then it doesn't really help move the needle in terms of success from our everyday member. And that's our goal. We want our members to be successful out there. And so how can we do that? Case in point, our Interski topics, the question is kind of like the clearing question is, does this help our members do their job better? Or does this create confusion and it can be misinterpreted and maybe even cause a little bit of harm? That's what we don't want to see. So really, those are the two main things that I'm focused on. And, they kind of drive me every day.
Now, were you able to set those goals, which especially the team one, from looking at performance last year? Did you look at, and sit back at the end of the season and go, all right, what went well, what didn't? Is there a checklist? Is there just kind of, you're looking at just performance, or is there an actual checklist you have of kind of like, I got to think of these things and did we accomplish them? Which probably your goal in the season before.
Yeah, right. It's more self-driven, to be honest with you. It's, although the checklist would be nice to have, there's no one feeding me that information other than my observations. Yeah. And one of the things that, like, I tell my staff and my team here in our business is that I view my job as the ability to spot trends and see how things are going. And then if the trend is going in the right direction, how do we need to keep it going there? If the trend is starting to change course, what do we need to do to nudge it back and to keep things moving in the intended direction? And so, the teams and the work groups, the task force out there, who are made up of all the educational expertise in this country, they didn't make it to where they are by accident. They're very smart people. They're very strong people. They're A-type people. And sometimes things can get a little complex, and I really try to recognize that and how can we steer that so that it's more digestible, and just so it's just trend spotting really is what I'm watching for. And that's what I see as my main function, really.
Yeah. So when it comes to that, I'm curious, because you got the team goals, and that's a lot where you are, and then you have the coaches that are working on with the team members and the disciplines and trying to get those goals for them. And then the team members themselves. I guarantee team members probably have some of their own goals for the season, but how do you and the coaches tie in with the team? Is it talked about with the team members, like for the disciplines, what disciplines are focus of things, or the task forces? And do you talk with some of the team members on their personal specific goals?
For sure. It's not a session, if you will say, where, okay, now we're talking about your personal goals. But one of the things that is important for us when we put together team training is to provide an opportunity for professional development. We want, we've got to balance it where at training, the team members are, first of all, who are very autonomous. The team members generally don't require a ton of, keeping your thumb on. They want to produce, they want to work. So there's time when we have to work on development. There's times when we need to work on practice. And then there's times when we need to, really provide professional development. And really, when we're in this kind of on the more the mid to tail end of the term, that's when we're really focusing more on the professional development side and practice. And, the idea of and how that professional development often happens is team members working with other team members. And so that they're sharpening their skills. I remember a couple team members coming back to us at the end of training last year saying, wow, that was unbelievable. I didn't appreciate how hard this was going to be to align with this other team member, and that requires a ton of work to be able to stay together, and consistency is a big deal for us there too. So, there's a lot of that professional development, and so that the team members can grow again to pass that knowledge back to our members. That's where that's the root of it all.
Well, I know from our training, from ed staff training here in the East, that I've been involved with now since the late 90s with Telly and Alpine, going through dev team and then ETS and examiner. And it's always, when we're together, it's amazing the learning opportunities that happen when you're sitting having dinner, sitting with another person on the team, another ed staff member, and chatting about something we did that day. It's not always specifically right on the hill, or it's not coming from whoever's leading the group. It's those interactions at different times on the chairlift with somebody else. It's pretty neat. And those don't happen if we're not together, if we're not able to do that. And that's been missed a little bit. We had a pretty abridged training last year, which was a bummer. I stayed for the whole day, but we didn't have any training the year before. I mean, it's important for us to get together and have those. And I know that the team has worked, that you've tried, like, if you're doing an end of the season one the last couple of years, trying to get the team together, correct?
We're looking at, we trained at National Academy. And so that's a new training environment. And that was a cool event because that training was solely focused on their physical performance. And it was that was practice. There's an opportunity for us to figure out what as a group do we want to bring to Interski in terms of our skiing and riding. And then, okay, great, let's go ahead and practice that. And through that practice is like, well, this is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, I can't tell you, we would get up at, I want to say 7, we'd get on the hill at 7 and we would take our practice runs. Back up. We trained full days before the academy happened. But then after full days of training, it became clear that we needed more training. We needed more practice. And that's when the team, I want to say 2 or 3 days throughout the week, would get up at 7 to load and we would go get, 2 or 3 or 4 more runs together to practice, and because it's hard. It's hard what you're doing there.
Angelo's leaning forward. We're into the educational part. I love it. He's thinking,
"Oh, my back hurt."
My back hurt.
No, but I'll tell you, it was impressive watching you guys get on it that early those days, because I mean, I know as a participant I was tired, and you guys had been doing those full days beforehand, and then the longer days even during academy. It was really impressive how hard everyone was working.
Yeah, and what was cool is self-driven. There's nobody saying, "Get your butt out of bed, let's go." It was everybody's like on their own. They were like, "Let's go." We've got work to do here, and that's a cool thing.
Yeah. And I've been kind of trying to highlight a little bit, almost doing all these little, because I mean, goals are important, and it's one of our fundamentals in the teaching skills of one of the triangles of our learning connection model, and then and the ability to assess. I mean, and what our performance is and how we're doing our MA, and it's not just MA of movement, but how are things, you talked a little bit so far about how things are being interpreted, or how the membership is getting the message. Are we getting the message out there? And it seems it's that continual assessment of the communication, the information going out, the information coming back from what you see and hear. I mean, that all goes into the learning connection model, even though you might not say it and the team members aren't saying learning connection model, it all revolves in that piece.
100%. I mean, that's the beauty of the learning connection model is it has finally focused our effort on what really matters. What are the elements that really matter to be good at this, and your ability to perform it and know your content. So those things are your technical side, your ability to present logical material, and affect the environment that you're in. That's the teaching side. And then your ability to connect and be with people who you don't know in many cases, and quickly form this alliance that, they want to be with you. Oh, shoot, this is over already. That's an important thing, and, really, even if you are like a piano instructor, those same things matter there, or a rock climbing instructor, those things matter there. And so we're proud of how this has evolved. It always evolution. There was no one that said, here's your golden ticket here. It's all evolution and paying attention and learning from the work that happens like right now. So, but we got a lot more work to do. There really is a ton of work, because a lot of our members, will look at those triangles in the learning connection model. And a lot of us will look at those and say, oh, yeah, of course. I've got good teaching skills. I got good people skills. I'm not clear on what the difference are, but of course, but as you guys know, when we go to an exam is an opportunity for the association to monitor how well the membership is working with the standards of excellence. And you get a lot of feedback, insight and feedback as to the direction that we need to continue to move in with our association. And that's where, we have more work to do there. And the goal is to make our members better. And the goal is to make them feel good about the fact that they're getting better. Like, this is fun. I want to do this. Right. And so we've got work.
Yeah. Well, it was neat. We had, I think Michael was on, Mr. Rogan, and he talked about one of the things you did at training last year, and it was with all the disciplines. You were matching up with people in synchro skiing. Mm-hmm. And really putting people into that play and experimentation mode, because you can do the MA. I mean, everyone should know the team's good enough. You can look at two of the team members and go, well, this one's doing that and that one's doing this. Mm-hmm. But then when Michael had the teams synchro skiing, they had to now physically do what the other person was doing in the front to stay with them. So even though they know it, now they physically had to do it. It was a pretty neat way, I think, of using that fundamental and some of the others in the teaching component there, which Angelo had some comments. I know on the pod, he thought that was a pretty cool thing, the synchro skiing and that activity. But that must have been fun. Who did you have to match up with, Jeb?
Well, I was with, I was with Ben Potts, Maddie, and maybe Ryan. And so we just had this simple, repeatable pattern to do. It was like, I don't know, 5 shorts to 3 mediums back to 5 shorts, and just work that all the way down. But you're right. And that was an eye opener for all of us, because it was, it's like, wow, I missed that, or there's so much occupying your brain when you're skiing at speed, because the challenge is to do this going fast, do this being real close to the person in front of you, trusting who's beside you, in front of you, and behind you, and being able to cross lines. And that's when it's like, oh man, there's a lot going on. I got to pay attention to my own skiing. I got to pay attention to the count. I got to keep my eye on what's going on in front with the rest of the team, so that if somebody makes a mistake, I can deal with that. And then you've got to pay attention to how come they can hit the fall line at the same time and I'm behind, or I hit the fall line before they do. And that's really when that was the brilliance to the team training that we had there at Big Sky, was that was what our objective was. Here is your pattern that you want to ski. And your objective is for all of you to hit the fall line at the same time. Okay. And so now you've got an achievable, objectified message where you can be like, all right, I missed the fall line when they were hitting the fall line. So now you've got something to work through and to figure out and work within your small group, receive input from your coaches, and really continue to grow and challenge yourself and refine. And that's professional development right there. It's like, what do I need to do to be able to rise to this challenge? Yeah. It was great.
Yeah. Go ahead, Angela.
No, I think a theme just developed. Like, one of the things you said early on, Jeb, was like being pro at this, being professional at this, which is probably a year-round endeavor, even though we're only on snow part of the year. So how do you do that? And what I'm hearing is, from what you're saying, is a real pro just constantly thinks, what can I learn from this? Mm-hmm. What can I? It doesn't matter if you're on snow, off snow. It doesn't matter if you're on a bicycle or a surfboard or a skateboard or a pogo stick or a trail run. It doesn't matter if you're reading a technical manual or if you're reading a book about business. Constantly, the background noise in your brain is what can I learn from this? And I think that's super cool. And we used to talk a lot about, or I used to hear a lot about teaching for transfer. It was one of the themes like that was driven into us back in the late 80s, early 90s, teaching for transfer. But I think what you're saying takes that to a new place, and it's like learning from transfer. Yeah. Here's a different activity entirely from skiing, but it doesn't matter because I'm learning how my body moves. I'm learning how my brain thinks. I'm learning how I get along with other people. If you're paying attention, you can get that stuff from it. It's really powerful in my mind.
I think so. I mean, if somebody said, how do you do what you do? I would really struggle to answer that succinctly, but that's it. You pay attention, you be aware of what's going on all the time, and it's like, here's my gig on the surfboard, right? Is when I go to pop up, I'm out of balance to the front because I've got too much weight on my front foot. I'm broken at the waist. I'm bent over. And that always leads you to looking down and lead into a fall. Well, hello, what's the transfer there to skiing? It's like, that's how I correct it, is because I'm like, dude, you're too far forward. You're broken at the waist. You've got everything's tipping ahead. You're going to crash. And you got to stay centered. Boy, do you ever hear that statement in skiing and riding? And there is that constant transfer all the time. And that's you've never arrived in this game ever, and you've always got something you can be better at. And plus, what's cool about this game that we're in is, the older you get, you can still progress and you still can get better, and as opposed to other professional sports. And pretty lucky, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Go ahead, Angela.
This time of year, I'm sure you guys hear it. I've heard it a few times in the past couple of weeks. People say, it's September, it's fall, it's time to turn my ski brain back on. But mine never shut off this year, hasn't shut off for the past many years, and you guys are the same, which is it's constant work, it's constant development, professional and personal. And Jeb, I'm curious how you respond to folks who say that our dues are too expensive. Because I hear that.
Throw the grenade there.
I hear that a lot too. Dues are too much.
Wow, that I sympathize, really. I mean, that's a shame. I mean, for the price of one or two coffees a week, not every day, but a couple coffees a week, really, I mean, this allows you to be part of something. This allows you to be part of an organization that helps you grow personally at a bare minimum, and, to be able to have conversations like this, to be able to have friendships like this. It's like, man, when I was 16, I was in college studying my ski stuff because those guys over there are having fun and I want to be part of that. And here I am almost 40 years later, still enthusiastic about paying my dues, which really equates to a couple cups of coffee a week for the season, which we do without question. There are, so that ability to connect with like-minded people, as well as the ability to, there's value in that, in the sense that if you go on to the either the regional site or the national sites, what I think too, and look at all of the opportunities for you to save money. I mean, literally in one purchase, you're going to make back your dues through the access that you have by paying dues, and so, hey, I get it. It's not for everybody. That's why I say, I'm really sorry to hear that, but I understand it. But I think like you guys understand the value. I understand the value, and where are you going to go to have access to high-end content, high-end people, the physical and the mental challenges that go with it, and the ability to save hundreds of dollars on things inside and outside of the sport for the price of a cup of coffee, here and there, over the course of the year. And it just, let's face it, good stuff costs money. And you have to spend money on the things that you enjoy. And if you don't enjoy that stuff, you probably shouldn't spend that money. And I'm okay with that. Way too much good comes from price of a cup of coffee.
I've been thinking about this quite a bit the last couple of weeks, because there was a big dust up on one of the Facebook groups that I accidentally looked at, and so it's kind of been on my mind, and I try to look at the other side of the story, when I can. And to be fair, there are a lot of folks, there are a lot of members in our organization who don't have immediate access at their home resorts to somebody at a high level, to maybe an examiner, or even somebody on the dev team, or certainly a national team member. It's like 0.00001% of the membership is on the national team, right? So it's a rare, it's a unicorn. And at a lot of areas, even an examiner is a unicorn. Mm-hmm. So how can folks, just to be fair, like how can members who don't have access to the highest levels, Jeb, what would your advice be? What can they do to access the information to realize that not only are, all the stuff you've talked about this morning, all the effort you put in year round, regardless of what you're reading or what gear you're moving on at the time, beyond all that effort, what can they do to access that information from home, so they can know that beyond that stuff you're doing for free, you're even involved in an international effort. We're talking about Interski and competing / sharing ideas on an international stage is also part of what you do. Mm-hmm. How can somebody from a ski school with very limited, or snow sports school, very limited access, learn that stuff?
I mean, first of all, it's going to take effort on their part to be in the game, right? And so much has gone into providing access to those leaders for the everyday member, the part-time instructor at Seven Springs, if you will. Ironically, I was chatting with one of those people via Facebook Messenger yesterday. Out on the golf course. It was my phone dinging on the golf course. Are you kidding me? Who's reaching? And it was one of our members, so they need to be able to reach out, and every one of these leaders gets excited about being able to connect with people. But that, to me, that's more of the obvious. What's less obvious is the sheer volume of work that has gone into providing access to every single member through digital content. Exactly what we're doing. I mean, last night, Dr. Margie King kicked off a phenomenal project, a multi-day course, if you will, on strength and mobility and how you can get better at this. If you're paying attention to your body and what you hear from your body, what you want your body to do, and any limitations, and then working to cross those limitations so that you can hit your goal. I mean, that was provided to our membership. That's the idea, is that there's constant flow of new content that's coming out. They need to be aware of that. There's only so much the association can do to make that awareness there. But that's putting our national leaders in the living rooms and the offices of every single one of our members, regardless of their involvement, to our newest level 1 to our most seasoned level 3 member out there. And so the other thing is that all of that content's recorded and remains available. So there is this push to, you have your manuals, you have your books and so forth, but the minute that's released and published, it's out of date. You guys know that.
Yeah.
The idea of provide more content, very similar to this, where it's you're working on fresh content. What's happening, and the cool thing about that is, Dave Schuling and I have this conversation. You can go in there and make an edit, to a recorded conversation if you need to refresh anything that may be becoming stale or out of date. And there's constantly a flow of that content and material for our membership. And it's all designed to connect people, to bring people into the fold, and so that they don't feel isolated out there. So there's just there's so much out there that's available. And if you are in one of those schools who does not have an examiner on staff, or for sure a team member on staff, it's just right at the end of your fingers with just connecting to the website and seeing what's available there.
Listen to Chaos and Company.
Exactly. That's what's so cool about you guys. I don't even think you guys make a penny doing this. You do it because you like to, I don't know. Maybe, I noticed you're in a bigger studio, Dave. So maybe money.
We got Wayne Long here in the wall.
You got the longer there. You bet.
I lose $15 a month paying for the Zoom account for this podcast.
There you go.
I'm taking a hit.
And you're psyched to do it, aren't you?
That's like 3 cups of coffee a month.
Yeah, there it is.
To pay for this bullshit.
Well, it is though. Jeb, people ask, why I wanted to start it, and there was multiple reasons, but one of the reasons I continue it and want to keep doing it and make Angelo do it with me and spend his cup of coffees money on this instead of cup of coffees is I get to sit down with you or Michael Rogan or Brenda Kelleher or Pete Allison, whoever we have on, Chris Fellows we had last week, that and I can chat and ask all the questions I want, like we're sitting around having a beer.
Oh, totally.
And, and then bourbon. And, we're just not quite doing that this morning because in the morning.
Very strategic of you guys. I do admire your strategy there, doing this call at 8:00.
Yeah. But it is. It's the being able to sit down. I mean, I didn't know about the team, like the PSIA-AASI had a team until I made the development team. Right. Just back then in the 90s, there wasn't the internet and all that stuff wasn't really to say, hey, here it is. We didn't have all that stuff yet. So now there is. It's at the end of the fingertips for so much stuff, even from team members from other countries, where Brenna was great to connect us with Keely Weibel and have him on from the Swiss team. That was, those things wouldn't happen. Angela and I wouldn't have those opportunities if we weren't first PSA members and come through and those kind of things. We wouldn't have those connections, that ability to connect and interact. So for me, it's cheap money, but I know for some, but I think it's just, they haven't found that connection. They haven't found Yeah.
Or they're angry, and maybe they weren't successful with something. I mean, let's face it, maybe it's not for everybody. I find it hard to believe, as good as it's been to me and my family, it's you guys, but hey, it is what it is. And I find great value in our membership. And if anybody who's questioning it, not to mention the fact that in the Eastern divisions example, or some of the other divisions in the country, they're breaking it up so it's more forward. It's less of a hit, so you can break that payment up, much like you would have a membership to the Y, But shoot, my wife spends so much more a month on her memberships to the gym than we pay for the year for memberships to this thing. Now that's one I question.
It's a good. I hope Holly isn't listening to Chaos and Company.
I have the door closed, so she at least hasn't heard it yet.
She's not going to listen.
Matt's going to have to listen to this when he hears it.
Exactly.
So there is a cool thing coming up this winter. And I think this is one of the things I think that I know we weren't sending a team for a while there years ago. And then we got back into it. And every year, other than what was it the one down in Argentina there was pretty hard to get Wi-Fi.
Right.
Everyone, until you guys came home, it was hard to get stuff out. But I met Levi Finland. It'll be pretty easy there'll be a lot of content coming out during the Interski and afterwards. And that's what I want to chat a little bit about here as we finish up is what is the vision? You might not want to give us all the secrets, but can you give us kind of what the vision is for the team going to Levi Finland this year? Do you have a main kind of focus push the team's looking to have the US be looked at for?
We are always, proud of our heritage in PSIA-AASI when it comes to Interski, things seem to go well for us when we go to Interski. Our clinics are widely attended. In Bulgaria, there would be 50 people in one of our workshops on snow. The classic, bullhorn, line it up, everybody, toes on the line. It was, I'm like, what is going on here? People are excited to hear what we're up to. And equally, we're excited to hear what other people are working on, the other nations' point of view on this thing. And really we learned back in 2011 in St. Anton that we'd better be going to Interski with more questions than answers, because in 2011 was an eye opener for us, because we just, as confident as we were with our message, it really didn't receive the, people weren't as excited about our message as we were. And that's when the light bulb went off. Like, we need to look at Interski as an opportunity to research with our national colleagues across the globe, as much as it is to say, hey, how great we are, PSIA-AASI. And that's where the learning connection model all came from, guys. It's all came from asking our colleagues from other national teams, what do you value? What's the most important attributes to being a skier, snowboard instructor?
I remember there's an interview with you on the chairlift. It was either one of the Irish
guys,
team, and that was pretty cool because you were asking the question about the teaching fundamentals and what were they going to be. I don't think at that time the team had really thought about people skills. It was the teaching fundamental.
Yeah, we knew that to have a good model, you need the model needs to be balanced. So we need to throw another triangle in there. Which should that triangle be? Certainly not the case, but good argument there. It's like, oh, you just needed people skills to balance your triangle. Like, ow, come on now. That's you've gotta really understand that. And that's in Bulgaria is where we rolled out the people skill fundamentals. And it was a standing room only. People wedged in way out into the hallway, just trying to look into the room to attend that lecture. And the main questions there were, we don't see the difference between teaching skills and people skills. And that's where Matt really did a nice job, his effort to break that barrier. It's like, well, the teaching skills connect you in the content in the environment, and so, can you balance all of that stuff? It's the weather is kind of funky right here. Let's move over there where it's, less windy. That's the environment, and so that you can be more successful with your content. Whereas the people skills just surely connect you guys together, and whether we're talking about skiing in this case, or we're just hanging out, as buds, you've got to be able to have that personal connection, void of the environment. And that's been something that's very unique to our system and what we're all about. And it's something that a lot of people, it's going to be a busy Interski, because we promised in Bulgaria, we didn't have all the answers, but we promised that we would come back and talk about how we assess to this stuff, in an exam. And so I guarantee it's going to be a busy session, and we're psyched about that.
That's cool. Because I wanted to ask you. I mean, I want to know, what things do you think our membership, just like when in Bulgaria they were missing? What is our membership grasping pretty well? Do you feel, you and the team feel, with the learning connection model right now? What are they not grasping? Mm-hmm. Like, is it the people skills that our members still don't have the way the team wants them to really be? Are they still mingling that with the teaching and not seeing the clear difference, or is it something else?
No, I really see movement. It's awesome. I'm seeing, in our last few exams that we did here in the East, you could really see the membership tuning in more to the learning connection model and really basing their effort around that, whether it's the technical fundamentals, working on their skiing and riding, or how they interact with the students. And just as a sidebar to this, I've got to get this out here, because you guys know about this being in your own home ski school, where guys and gals are like, hey, I can't really teach today because I got to train for my exam next month, and as if training for a certification exam is so different than what you really do doing the job. That's the cool thing, is those days are gone. The best way that you're going to train to be an exam, to be successful at an exam, is to do the job. Focus in on the fundamentals within those triangles on the model. But the one thing that will be new going into this Interski, and we'll be able to bring some content to our membership, is the outer ring of that model. The outer ring talks about the decisions and behaviors of an instructor, and we haven't really talked about that much, mainly because our plate is full with the other fundamentals. But, what does that mean? And when I go to, decision making, how do you make decisions? And you could get into a bunch of scientific research there, which there's plenty of it out there. Or you can just break it down into the common steps. And, so let's say here's a trend that I see out there, with how our instructors can get better today. And right now, when you're at an exam and you see an instructor introduce their content, or you stand on the hill on Saturday morning and you watch the instructor get to know their students and make decisions on what they're going to do based on that let's get to know each other moment. What we're seeing is phenomenal decision-making skills taking place right there. They're interacting with them. They're finding out a little bit about their interests. They're finding about their desires. They're starting to put that together to formulate a lesson. But what we see commonly is that the decision-making frequently stops there. And so they've decided on the course of action, and they're going to march forward on that course of action. And how often you guys know that you need to decide to stop and just say nothing. That is a decision to do that. You guys know me. I get to the top of the hill. There's oftentimes I'll just pull away and just move right away from the group. That is a decision that I don't need to say anything right now. I need to get people going. They know what they need to do. They need to practice. But the interesting thing is how it's the decision making is the outer ring holding all of the other fundamentals and skills in place. And, when people see a good lesson, or, whether you're in an exam, whether you're in a clinic, or you're a student being instructed from somebody great, what they see is a very linear path. They see a beginning, they see some middle activities, and then they see it wrap up. Very linear. And for that really good instructor, they were all over the place to get to that linear path. They started here. They know where they want to end up, but they're like, I've got to go over here, and then I've got to shut up and allow practice. So we're going to come back here versus continuing on that path. But to the observer, it's linear. And so what do they do? If you're training for your certification exam and they've had a wonderful clinic from you guys, they write down your progression. Yeah. And then they go to repeat your progression because you delivered this wonderful linear progression, and void of the decisions that you made to select those activities producing that linear line of activities. That's we need to spend more time focusing on those decisions and, why did you do what you do? And that's really when you look at our teaching exams now, you see a lot of information in there. Why didn't you address what they just said? I was in a teaching exam just last winter, and one of the kids said to the person teaching, wow, I think I just discovered something here. And they just had that lost look, like they were reevaluating things in their mind based on what they just did. And what did the teaching candidate do? They just said, that's nice, skipped right over it and just kept on going. Well, wouldn't that be an opportunity to decide to say, let's do it again. And I want you to tell me, what is it that you're making your discovery on? Let's go. And then they come back, because wouldn't that be anchor and learning? Isn't that what it's all about? And we just don't see enough of that. And so there's effort underway right now for Interski planning to bring just more value back to our members so that they are stronger at what they do. They can recognize work that they need to do and to get better.
Yeah. So to simplify, because as you said, your job is to take complex things and make them simpler for all of us to understand. Mm-hmm. So would you say that the circle and the decisions that are being made that encircle all the triangles, is that kind of the whole? Like versus looking at when you're coaching, using the learning connection model as a whole versus trying to hit all these buckshot pieces. I've got to do all these parts. Yeah. I think I
totally believe that. Here's an example. Do I need to focus on the ski? Do I need to focus on the body, how the body moves to affect that ski? Or do I need to focus on something outside of the body, and something as simple as allow your skis to hit the fall line at the same time as the person in front of you does? And so now my focus is outside of the body. So I can focus on the equipment, I can focus on my body, or I can focus on a performance that's outside of me. And those are all completely legitimate things to do, but how you do it, if you don't ever talk to me about how to move my body, then that latter example of allowing your skis to hit the fall line at the same time is pointless, because I don't know how to do that. But if I know how to move my body, then I can adjust how I move my body to align with the objective right here. And so those are all decisions that I need to make to align just to the technical. It's not just to the teaching, or people skills. I need to shut up sometimes. Right? And that's got to be a decision. I'm going to decide to pull away and just leave the group there. They're going to look at each other like, what's going on here? They'll figure it out. They're going to start skiing and riding, practicing.
I'll shut up and let Angelo go.
No, I've been at the top of the hill when Jeb took off, and we just thought you ran out of stuff.
Well, there's a funny story to that, because when you get dispatched out to one of our friends in Central Division, where you're talking a couple hundred vertical feet, how you guys know you get to the top of the lift, and what's everybody do? They look at you as if it's time for you to say something. Well, shoot, if you're not careful, you're going to run out of things to say by about 9:45. So you better be able to figure it out, and we're going to continue to practice here, folks.
So that's great to hear that, because that I think gives a good perspective as to the overview of what you're bringing to Interski. How is it going? I know you have to put in the topics in the presentations you want to do indoor and outdoor, and they get approved, not approved, that kind of thing through the Interski jury or whatever there is. Do you know how we're doing on that? Is that stuff already come out as to you have these ones you're going to do and those you can, or?
Yeah, yes, I do know.
Okay, well, that's all I want. I just curious if that happened. I'm not asking you to tell us which ones, yes or no. I was just timing.
Yes, I know. That is really what I'm working on right now. I've had at this point, we're having just direct calls with individual coaches and the work groups within the discipline, and with the goal of shaping. Because let's face it, it's like we talked about. If you don't shape the direction of this thing, it could start to wander, and we got to pull it back. Another example would be like, let's say cross country wants to talk about this in technical skiing, and alpine wants to talk about this in technical skiing, but they're starting to drift apart from one another. We've got to be able to pull it back so that we have that consistent national message moving forward across all of our disciplines. That's what we're really working on right now. And it's funny when you were, busting my chops as we were coming on the call here, Dave, you're like, oh, he's getting ready for whatever. I was literally writing this: add to Interski summary, answer this question. Does this content help our members do their job? That is, we're really trying to bring it right back to, not some fancy smoke and mirrors presentation to take to Interski. What we like to do is this is what we're doing at home. This is how we are working to develop our membership. So all the things that we've been talking about so far, that's the content that we have that we're going to take to Interski. And, we share that. It's an acid test, anything that we can learn and glean from our colleagues from other nations. Anything that we can, so as we deliver it, can we learn anything from that? And as we attend other nations, other things that we can learn there too.
Yeah, that's cool. So you may not want to answer this because you don't want to, not necessarily offend anybody, but it's like when you're thinking of the other countries, is there a certain country that you're going, okay, I got to make sure I go to some of their stuff because some of the stuff they did last time, or I've heard over the years, and it's not derogatory against any others, but it's like everybody was like, why doesn't Jeb, the team coach, want to come see our stuff? Yeah. But is there something like Jeb Boyd himself is going, I want to go listen to this. I saw this on the top of the list. This team's doing this. Is there anything special?
Well, we haven't seen any, because this topic submission date hasn't hit yet. So I've not seen anything. We're really in touch with the Canadians, and, we speak with Jeff Marks and his crew frequently. And those guys, they're sharp. We really like what they have to say, and always can glean information from those guys. And on a personal level, I always like the Aussies. I always love what those guys have to say. And the main reason I like it is because they always have a real clean, simple message.
Yeah.
Whether it's the direct content or just their delivery, that, I really pay attention to that. But when at Interski, when you basically every day you get a list of workshops that are happening, and that's how it's worked out. You've heard me use the word lecture. Yeah. We never use the word lecture in our vernacular here, but in Interski, anything that happens indoors is listed as a lecture. Anything that happens outside on snow is listed as a workshop. Yeah. So we'll get those lists every day, and we're like, okay, I'm going more towards the topic and less towards the country, because let's face it, everybody's good out there.
Yeah, because this got, with all the countries coming in, all the things that are going on, even though it's a week-long thing, you can't hit everything. Mm-hmm. It's you gotta, at some point, I know Michael has said that sometimes you guys diffuse out to try to see a lot of everything, which is, I wonder if there's some battles with you guys going, no, I'm going to this one, dude. You have to go to that one.
or you get there and you're like, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
get out of here. Yeah. No, but what's interesting is that the theme for Interski is the guest experience is everything. Yeah. And so all the nations are rallying around that theme. And, that's in our wheelhouse, right? Yeah. Being student-centered, come on, that's what we're all about. But, I'll say I've had a number of conversations with some of our teams about, boy, do we really know what that means? And that, to me, that's another, well, of course, statement we do, but do we really, and I think that, we had a call with the coaches early on, we get together, try to get together monthly, but, and I said to these guys, I think we might learn a little bit more about that theory of student-centered teaching through this process. And wouldn't it be great if, and you guys as examiners know this, if you're at a teaching exam and a candidate says, oh, hang on a second, I want to try that. We're going to do this again here. And for the sole reason that we want to make sure that we either are reinforcing what's happening in a good way, or we're seeing something trail off and I need to address that. Wouldn't that be a wonderful experience? And when it does happen, we celebrate that, Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, Angelo. Again, we get the coach of the team, the one team, the capitalize ONE, and then lowercase team. So even though they complain about it, that's the way Jeb wants it. So that's the way we're going to do it. But Jeb, no, thanks. It's been, and the team, many of the team members, we still have many we could talk to in the future and have team members back. We've had some back multiple times, but they have really helped Angela and I. The team has definitely been open to coming on and chatting about things, which is great. That gives great access to anyone out there that's listening, even though we have some folks that listen that aren't ski instructors, snowboard instructors. Yeah. But a lot of our listeners are, and it's just great for the team to give that kind of access in your time. So I thank you for that, because I love that I get the time and I get to ask whatever we want and chat for an hour and a half, which is great. When we have Michael, it might be 6 hours, but that's okay. I'll take every minute I can get, because it is that value to me. You said, about the podcast, Angela and I aren't necessarily going for dollar value here. It's definitely that value of what we're able to get out of it in terms of personally to ask the questions we're thinking about. And I think this is another avenue for education. Angela and I talk about that a lot, trying to inspire or get people to read new things, read some old stuff. Looking at, it's not real old, but Ellen Post-Foster stuff. It's like members are missing that stuff. Like it should be still on the forefront and of, hey, read these things.
Tell you what, if you want to get good at this, read her books.
Yeah.
They're so simple, easy to understand.
Yeah. And she was awesome to chat with. We've got a lot on the list, but thanks. And we do have some team members we might have to call you to ask. The schedules are busy, but we need that push to get them on.
Yeah. Get them on.
The Flynn brothers, man. The Flynn brothers created so much excitement making the team, I think. And being at our Masters Academy Pro Jam last year, it was pretty cool to see the excitement around their athletic skiing.
Yeah, those guys are superstars, and they're Eastern natives. They all came from Vermont, and those boys bring a lot of enthusiasm and interest to the team. It's great having them around.
Yeah,
I really being, we're buds, and it's always fun to get to hang out with you guys, and good on you for doing what you're doing here at the podcast and the YouTube channel. And as you were talking, it just one last thing came to mind about membership and dues and all that stuff. And what's cool is I don't believe you require a membership or dues to see this stuff. It's free.
Yep.
And you also don't need to be a PSIA-AASI member to receive this information. And really that's the work that we do, man. It's all about, let's just make this a better environment, a better sport, a better profession, whether you're a member or not, and hopefully you see the value and you want to be part of this. And so good on you guys.
Well, the only thing we charge is that all of our guests have to buy us beer.
Oh, well, yeah. And you guys do well with that.
Yes, we do.
That's Angelo over there. Here, maybe I'll talk to him.
See, that one beer negates 1 cup of coffee that I spent on this Zoom account.
Now listen. Beer is more than coffee. So
especially at the resorts.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you, Jeb. And it's always a blast, Angelo. This is awesome doing this with Angelo. Angelo is my absolute co-host, keeps me straight and narrow and keeps it very educational, which is great. It's a fun team and I enjoy doing it with Angelo. And we want to thank all our friends out there listening and also our sponsors, Technical Blizzard and Nick's Boot Fitting. Get those boots fit. Don't go out there with the boots right out of the box. Pain in the feet and all that kind of stuff. Leave that for Matt Boyd. He loves the pain, but the rest of us should have comfortable feet and not hurt and get things done right. I mean, dial them in. We all try to dial them in and let it roll. But thanks everybody for listening. This has been The Fall Line with Chaos and Company.